It's all part of the show.
There you go.
It's gonna get a long ride. Really? Tell them your time is up.
It was performance art.
For my next trick, I'll disappear.
That one.
I just looked up and he was gone.
I think he went to grab something out of the car really quick.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
I mean, I wish you'd tell us.
Yeah.
Hey, no. But welcome to like life with Noah.
Oh wait, he's driving away.
I'm right here. No, I'm getting stuff. That's my bad.
Oh, wow.
You're hired again.
And well met. One of the things they call me about here is the teller. I tell tales. Not much for music though. Not my style. But one of the things you can always count on is organization will always make a story fall apart or trip over itself if you don't do it right. So, one of the things you can do is organize it in a fairly modern setting that doesn't have mandolins and definitely doesn't have flutes. The point being, through this method of organizing your story, I have a solution of what we can do. Now, we can organize it with a database. A bit complex, but a little bit of something at the very least to help organize people. People have a very, very hard time organizing their stories. It comes to the basic idea of faulty structure makes faulty stories. It always will. How are you going to live in a house that only has one supporting beam? Aren't you going to be scared that it's going to fall on you any day? It's bad. Bad organization can lead to surprise details that come out of nowhere. You know very little depth, and that's really key for involvement. I'll show you how to, and then I guess we'll address flaws of that. Because there are some. Not everything's flawless. Oops. One of the things that's going to be making this very, very important for storytelling. So if you don't organize it, it's going to end up like you're seeming forgetful. Like you didn't properly put down what you needed to say on your note cards. But it can also make the surprises in your story like feel undeserved. Like I get it, somebody wants a surprise twist. Ooh, gotcha. Turns out he was the killer all along. But if there's nothing to establish that, then it feels undeserved. Does it not? If I just said, yeah, but he fires back with his magic. Oh, I thought we were watching Love Actually, not Lord of the Rings. It can also make your story come out as a rushed pace. And, well, I mean, that can happen when you've not prepared anything and not Well, guess I'm moving on. The depth of your database can also affect your involvement in the story. Like, let's say that we use, we have a character and he's completely, we just have his name and his ID. Cool, that's it. You have his ID number or his number 706 in the story, and that's it. That's all he is. It's always going to be about depth. The depth of the database will show you how depthful your story and characters and development world are fleshed out. If I just say this town is a shop, cool, that's all it has, a shop. How does this function? There's no government buildings, there's no bathrooms, there's no bar. People got to drink, people got to eat. But the depth of storytelling can make connections, just as the depth of the database will show you what connections are there. And in order to make your story more believable, you'll need that depth. But really, when it comes down to it, this is showing you how to actually do it. I'll start with this. This is part of my drawings I did to try and map everything out. Not actually to scale, there's a whole bunch of beta pictures that I went through, but it stretches all the way back down there. But the key parts you have to remember is that when you make your story, let's say you have your idea, break down that artwork into all little tiny pieces. Divide it, put it in your categories, and throw it out. And ask why. Asking why will make you actually put your connections. So if you put up your character, has in his inventory a ring, and it means absolutely nothing, but you wanted to write it down, but he found a ring, and there's no other justification for it, making it a weak entity, or a weak attribute of his inventory. A weak entry. Throw it out. Don't need it. The inventory should always, as an example, always feed back into something. The rule of Chekhov's gun applies. Don't mention it unless you're going to use it. And if it's mentioned, it better be used. And in this case of this understanding of doing it through a database, you will get an understanding of how you're supposed to build stories and how stories have hierarchies. Everything's built from the top down. You start with your base story, you have your plot structure, and it all breaks down. Who's the character? What do they need? What do they have? What's the setting like? Do they have, is it in the 1700s? What religions are out there? Special interest groups like the FBI or other ones. But all you do is throw out weak entities and you kind of weed out everything just to make sure. And through this idea, I've also put in the thought and effort of testing different databases. I used MySQL for this and tried mapping everything out. I also tried through other things. Oracle wasn't as cooperative, but MySQL is, well, you want to use more relational type databases. You want that idea. Not to mention this is for a different demographic for writers or people who want to tell stories. You don't always have to talk about computer science things with your database. That's the entire point. And MySQL has better, more friendly more user-friendly kind of interactions. The way you're going to be able to do this and actually map everything out really depends. I started doing mine, and I forgot to take later pictures. And before I came, I forgot to make sure it was there. So, at the same time as while this is wonderful quality, it's being unprepared and being unorganized. And also just badly done. But the entire point of organizing your database like this means that you give it structure. Your story is going to have structure. However, that's going to come in the flaws. I can't, with a database, express the dialogue you should use. Case in point, I can't really tell you how to say something. And it really comes down to execution. We can have the best structure, most detailed linked lines, and the most potential for a great story. But it all depends on execution. I mean, that's what organizing with your database won't do for you. It's only a structure. You can't express word choice. And although this is a more subjective viewpoint, and it's based on the person who's writing, it will never tell you if your story is generic or cliche or bad. In general, this will just help you organize it. And it's only as powerful. This organization is only as powerful as your understanding of your story is. If you create this much, and you say, all right, here's my story, it's ready. I had a character, he's got a name, he's got a personality, he's got an age. We're good. We're starting a story. There's nothing to it. And it'll fall apart real fast. The amount of depth you put in is the amount of depth you'll get out. Plain and simple. But, in any case, the faulty nature of stories, will always make, presentations and stories fall apart. If you don't structure it right, they'll fall apart. Repetitive, on loop. You want the record to skip, throw the needle somewhere else. But the idea is you want to avoid these things like surprise details, or you want to avoid that you have no depth to your characters or world. You want to make it feel fleshed out, livable. You want to make it feel like you can do it. Using the tools of how to. Of course, this is just introductory. You should be able to organize it. I mean, let's be honest, I also organized this entire speech through a database. Every single part of it. That's good.
Any questions?
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
So what was, do you have the database that you tested it on? Like what was the outcome? What were the attributes?
I did it on MySQL because it's user-friendly nature. I tried it on Oracle. Didn't work out too well. Mainly for the reason of one demographic area. Nobody's willing to learn single line by line text entry.
Well, it's not that. I mean, what was the world that you created?
Oh, it was the world that I created.
Yeah, and how did that go?
I have created a few worlds. I also mapped out Ghostbusters on there. That's one of my data points. But I created my current Dungeons and Dragons campaign on a database. Entirely on the thesis of that's how I was going to develop it. And I wrote notebooks and notebooks on trying to actually map everything out by hand, making ER diagrams, EER diagrams, relational schemas, and otherwise. Would have been nice to see it. Yeah, I didn't find them all because they're scattered through notebooks, so it's real wonderful, real planned. Otherwise, I kind of tried to practically go through whatever stories I could grab.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.